Have you ever had an idea that was so clear it was like a 3D movie? Have you ever told a friend about the idea and they told you, wow, if you could only make that into a business, you would be rich? Sound familiar? Welcome to Knowledge to Currency. I'm your host, Senator Porter, with my co-host, Roosevelt Williams III, and we're here to help you take action. This is free information. We only ask one thing: build a strong foundation and mindset. We have insight to help you get started. Most of us just need a push. What's up? What's up? Welcome to another episode of Knowledge to Currency. I'm your host, Senator Porter, and it's episode 28, and we have Sidney here. How are you today?
Oh, man, living the dream.
Fantastic. First off, I want to thank you for coming on the show. As I've been in this journey through San Diego, you're one of the definitely good people that I've met, and I definitely want to give you your flowers for coming on the show and just kind of highlight what you do and things about the industry that you're in.
Yeah, I appreciate the invite. You know, like I remember when you first stepped into San Diego.
Yeah,
I'm like, okay, I'm from it's Florida, right?
Well, I moved here from Florida.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, like what's going on? You know, we had some commonalities, obviously, in real estate and, you know, both being brothers. And so let's make this happen.
Yep, and you got the golden smile.
There it is.
So let me ask a question. How you go from being a model to owning an appraisal company?
Interesting. So really my stories, I would say, started back in like 2002.
Okay.
So at that time, gosh, what was I? 22 years old. I was on my route to being like a firefighter. So I went to nursing school, got my nursing degree. And then, you know, as I was waiting to test, because the fire department's like, they don't test every day, right? It could be like a couple times a year. So a friend of mine, which is one of my business partners now, his brother was a loan officer. And he was like, hey, you guys should be appraisers. And I was like, what is that? You know, so it's like the yellow book thing, like an appraiser, you know? And hopefully I'm not dating myself with the yellow book. But yeah, so he basically introduced it to us. My buddy Mark got into it first. And then shortly after, I got into the appraisal game, you know, in a couple of years of working with one company, three of us, two others in the same company. Like we started our own business. This was out in Orange County at the time. So we were appraising Orange County, LA. Market crashed. You know, real estate went to shit, and then, you know, I ended up in San Diego. So, yeah.
You're like, all right, this is cool. And you're like, oh, no, not cool.
I went to go find myself, meaning I was out of work. You know, it's the new millennial thing to say when you go find yourself, you know. So I went to go discover myself. But no, I mean, I worked for Chase for a couple of years.
Okay.
That was the time when they were doing like asset management. They acquired WAMU, cash for keys. You know, It's weird when you knock on someone's door and you tell them, hey, we'll give you $5,000 to get in 3 days.
And they were like, okay.
Some people had a shotgun and you hear it. They're like, you better get off my porch. I'm like, they denied it. Do not return to this property. But yeah, it was interesting times, you know, so.
So let's go with the modeling. How long did you do that, or do you still do it?
You know what? It's so interesting about modeling. When you need to book a job to eat, it's a different vibe. It's like they know that, right?
Oh, okay.
And it's harder to book jobs.
Okay.
But now that I have a successful business, and when it comes to booking commercials, like I care, but I don't. But I don't need it to eat anymore.
Right.
And it's like they can feel that energy, like, oh, he's just kind of like here. And so, you know, I do it with myself. I do commercial acting with myself, my family. So my wife does it. My kids do it. You know, I've done Super Bowl commercials, Targets. My latest one, I forget what it was, like Peloton or something like that. So
that's
it's just right place, right time, you know. And COVID has helped with that.
Yeah.
Because everything is done in LA. So it's like now everything is self-tape. So I can be in San Diego. I don't go to LA until I book the job, which is beautiful.
Cool.
Yeah,
really cool.
It is. Look, man, it's a lot of money for little work, right? Let's be real about it.
Right.
But, you know, the process of booking the job can be like timely, you know? There's a lot of time. Look, I don't want to drive 2.5 hours to LA for a 5-minute audition and turn right back around. So I think the COVID was really nice to me in that aspect.
That's cool. So then for appraisals, how's the market been with the shift and the market changing?
That's a good question. I think and I tell other people this is where you make your money, right? Sure. Because look, people get into real estate because they see that, oh, the commissions are high. Look, 3%, especially in San Diego, right? 3% on $1 million property, that's a pretty good paycheck, you know? Right. And during COVID, everything was flying off the market, right? And so it's easy. And I think when people see that, they see the Instagram or how people post, and they're like, oh man, real estate is the best industry to get into. And look, I love it, but but real estate, as you know, is extremely volatile, right?
Oh yeah.
And so when you get into it when it's a hot market, yeah, but when it's not a hot market and you have to create your skills and have skills and be able to negotiate and go back to the basics, I think what a lot of people forget is like what we're doing right now is what essentially you have to do in real estate every single day. You have to be calling people. I do a lot of lunch and learns, which is good for me. Right. I like to create value by being an educator. So I want to give you the power to make the right decision based on the data that I provide to you. Right. So that's kind of how I look at real estate, you know. But to answer your question, I mean, real estate is good, you know, and because I'm always been in that pivot mode and staying ahead of the curve. Look, when the market crashed in 2008, it wasn't pretty, but what I did learn from that is not to have all my eggs in one basket. Sure. And before, everything was origination. So for the listeners out there, origination is like refi and purchases, right? So I said, you know, I can't rely on that refi purchase market. What I want to rely on is things outside of that. You know, not to give too much of the business secrets, you know. But that's what I did. So I started looking at creating relationships, like you have to, right? And I love talking to people. I'm like a B2B, B2C, doesn't matter. Like I want to get in your face. Right. And so, yeah, we've been able to, you know, I think last month, we did maybe 40 deals, and only 4 came from lenders.
That's awesome.
Right? So yeah, it's really awesome. Right. So yeah, I love a market like this. It's a pivot. It gets people that are not serious about the industry to leave. Sure. They'll be back again in 5 years, right? When it's really easy again. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I actually like a down market, I would say.
So you like the down market. So I was out networking because you know how I do it.
Oh yeah.
Met a guy who's only been in the mortgage game like 17 months.
I love it.
So
that's a COVID. We have to have a name for that. The ones that just came from COVID.
Yeah, you know? COVID real estate professional.
Yeah, the COVID draft.
So he hasn't seen a down market. At that time, rates were low. And he's like, oh man, this is all great. Like, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. Like, this is easy. And I'm thinking like, man, it could change. And like literally like 3 months later, everything changed. So I hope I run into that guy again to see how he's coping with it and how
if he's still in it.
Yeah, if he has a good leadership.
Hopefully.
Because, you know, that's a part of it. Like, you said it was you and your friend, but who kind of mentored you guys into learning the business?
I've had a couple different people. So there's Mr. Mendoza, who was like, it was really cool the way this was set up. It was like a chop shop, right? So it was probably 12 guys in an appraisal office. Okay. So like now it's regulated to where you can only have three trainees, you know, under a certified license, but we had literally it was like 12 of us, right? Sure. So he was like my introduction to it. So all you know is one way, right? You don't know if it's good, bad, you just know this is the way. Right. And then I started kind of branching out and, you know, dealing with other people, other appraisers, and met a gentleman by Chris Soter, you know, and he was out in LA and he had a different way of doing it. So I was like, oh, this is a different perspective that I wasn't used to, right? And look, as an appraiser, I think I always tell my guys this too, my team, we're always solving for X, right? We're like, this is algebra, guys. There's a problem, we have to solve it. Right. And so I'm naturally inquisitive in that way anyway. I'm like, well, why are we doing the things that we're doing? You know, with my first higher up, you know, Mr. Mendoza, it was great, but there was not a lot of questions that were being answered. It's like, oh, this is the way we do it. And then, you know, as you go along, so I've had many different mentors along my years in appraising or life period. Sure. That kind of made me pull out to say, you know what, like if you want to be the best in your industry, and I feel like I'm the best and I want to continue to be the best, so I have to keep education, I have to keep being creative and figure out different ways, education, things like that. So, but yeah.
Because that's one thing, like I've seen you speak before several times.
Thank you.
And then just obviously knowing you, but you're very on point with the information. I can tell you know what you're talking about, have conviction with it. And, you know, you don't got to necessarily fact check because you know you've done your homework. So that's awesome.
Yeah, man. I think, you know, what I've learned about speaking is that you have to give a little bit to everyone. Some people want it to be funny.
Right.
If it's not a little bit funny, like you're going to lose that part of the audience. You have to have, you know, some people are very analytical, so you have to bring the numbers because they want to know percentages. If you have some sharks in a room, they're like, what is my return on investment?
Yeah.
They don't want to say, oh, it's great, you're providing more housing for, no, they don't care about that.
Any of that.
They're like, give me the return, the ROI, right? But then other people are like, no, I want to solve the crisis in homes. Right. And so you have to be able to deliver all of those kind of 4 different aspects when you're speaking. But yes, I lead with data because all we do is, like I tell people, men lie, women lie, numbers don't, right? Because maybe that's from Jay-Z. Thanks Jay.
You say it now too. You say it now too.
Yeah, so
I'm sure he took that from somebody.
I'm sure, but I've heard it from Jay, so I'm going to quote him. But yeah, I mean, like, and it's true because I always tell my investor partners, I go, I'm not here to gas you up. I go, I'm here to give you what I believe this is worth based on data, because you're about to spend $300 million on this deal. If I'm just pumping you up like, yeah, it's there, and then you put in that money in that deal and you don't get that return, you're gonna look at me and go, you know what? You don't know what you're talking about. So I'd rather you disagree with me and me have my, and for myself to have data to back what I'm saying, then you go, you know what? I didn't agree with you, but your numbers are dead on. And that's the value that I give to them. And so when I teach a group of people, I'm using data. Like, guys, you know, I've had a realtor tell me before, like, oh, I just know what people want to pay for. I go, well, that's amazing. Right. But I can't tell the bank that. Right. The bank wants to see the data, you know? So, you know, by leading with that, I feel like, you know, I'm doing everyone a proper service, you know? So, yeah.
I think that's really good because sometimes you'll see someone trying to sell by owner, like they want to sell property on their own. Would you advise them to hire someone like you first to appraise the property so they get a realistic value? Because sometimes I feel like they overprice the asset. They think it's worth more. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Well, I think, you know, with real estate, it's very interesting. There's residential and there's commercial, right? Okay. So with residential real estate, yes, everyone thinks their home is the best home ever, right? And the reason why you hire a professional is because you're too emotionally attached to your house.
That makes sense.
You know, and I always tell people, they go, oh, what should I do to, you know, increase value in my home? I go, be nosy and go to the open house, right? Because the market being the buyers, is dictating what they like and don't like.
Right.
And so if you're trying to improve a property to put it on the market to sell, you better do something that everybody else wants, not what you want. Right. So that's, I think the FSBO thing, the for sale by owner, may work if the owner is leading on data, but don't use a Zillow because it's going to throw it off, right? Like Zillow's, I'm sure, is great at what it does. It allows the general public to know what's happening in their neighborhood.
Sure.
But if you were to put in $300,000 today, Zillow tomorrow wouldn't say your home was worth another $300,000, right? So it's limited. Okay. So yeah, should you hire me? Absolutely. Why? Because I'm not here to fluff you up. I'm here to say, you know, identify the problem. What's going on with your property? What have you done to it? And then is there enough data within your subdivision or immediate market that will support that value or not? And I think in a nutshell, that's what appraisers should be doing. Although, you know, lately we've been hearing a lot of discrepancies and values and things of that nature in minority neighborhoods. So it's messed up. It's more than messed up, right? I think it sets back generations. And it's a real problem. And I think it's something that it's almost too big to tackle because what I'm learning about in different areas around the country, you can't even punish the appraiser. You can't give them fines. All you can do is tell them to go do more education, right? Which is like in itself, it's weird. It's like
that's not enough.
Yeah, if you're not competent, education works. If you're prejudiced, education doesn't change that.
Yeah, I agree. So I mean, not a funny story, but an ironic story.
Yeah.
That you say that. My aunt and uncle, they wanted to buy a house. They were going to sell their house in Pennsylvania, and then they wanted to buy a house somewhere. They kept talking about it for years and years. They never did it, but they thought about it. They wanted to pay their neighbor friend to go to a place for them because he was white, and they're like, "We'll pay you. Just act like you're going to buy the house because." And this is like 2000, like this in 1950.
This happens in 2022.
Yeah, this, I was like, "Are you serious?" They're like, "Yeah, I'm telling you, they're not going to give us the price," and they truly believe that. They felt that. So I couldn't say that, hey, that's not true, because they must have felt something.
Yeah.
But you never really think about it when it comes to that type of thing.
And you think it doesn't happen in California, and it's happening, right? You're like, oh, that's a Southern thing, or but look, realtors are telling their clients, oh, whitewash your home. You know, so it's like, that means take everything down, all your ethnic things, your photos. And look, I've had an appraiser. I mean, I've had a homeowner. I had an appraisal on a cul-de-sac. So this property's at the end of the cul-de-sac, and there's no parking on cul-de-sacs, right? So I'm walking down the street, and after I finished the appraisal, they go, hey, you know what? And it was a mixed couple, black and white mix. And they were like, yeah, you know, we've been hearing all these stories. So we thought we should just take all the pictures down. And then we saw you coming down the street. We're like, I think that's the appraiser. Oh, we're fine. So they actually left everything up, which was like, it's disheartening, right?
Yeah,
it's
that's
like
kind of messed up.
Yeah, I'm like, you actually were afraid that you're going to get discriminated on because
your picture,
and it's at the house that we're looking at and nothing else, right? So I don't know. It's a problem though, for sure.
Yeah, because you think about it, people will say the picture, but if you put these Italian marble floors in and all that stuff, it's not going to necessarily make your house go up in value. But I feel it because I spent $25,000 on this, that it will. It doesn't mean anything.
It may not, yeah. It's so funny because I'm actually going to do a talk about that pretty soon here in regards to cost and value.
Sure.
Okay, so like during COVID, everyone was having COVID babies. I had a COVID pool, so I put in an amazing pool in my backyard, right? But the thing is, it's like you spend $100,000 on a pool and backyard remodel, right? Which is not. But I know when I get a refinance, the appraiser's not going to give me $100,000.
No.
So it's like people have to understand that as well, and I think that's why I'm having a talk on this matter, because people are thinking, "Well, I just put in $50,000." I'm like, "Oh, fantastic!"
Right.
You know, like, did that $50,000 just get your home to par?
Yeah.
Is the market going to return that? Or during COVID, it was like double because people were paying $100,000 over asking, so you're probably getting way more than what you put in that property. But then sometimes you get 50% less. It's all indicative on the market, So I think it's something interesting that I think homeowners need to realize is you don't always get dollar for dollar back for your turn. Think of it like the stock market, Yeah.
Or sometimes it's all timing too.
Everything is timing.
So if you're trying to sell right now, it may not be the best time. You might want to hold off for a little while until the market heats up, but it also depends on where you live, like all those things. But like you said, it's such an emotional transaction because you could have raised your kids there. You could have had firstborn, whatever it could be, graduate, all the memories, birthdays and stuff. So then you're trying to sell this, and we look at it as a transaction. Okay, you want this rate, you want this, I got you that. And then they're looking at, okay, I got what I wanted, but I'm still tied to this.
It's like the lemon. They want to squeeze what it is they look at a house that's sold down the street, and they don't have all the specs or the scenario around that sale, right? Because, with the MLS, we're privy to that. We can call the realtor and say, hey, I'm a professional in this industry. I'm an appraiser. Can you give me the lowdown on what's going on here? So what happens is they see that down the street and they go, my house is way better. I can sell this myself. What does a realtor do?
Sure.
And then they try to sell it themselves. I don't know where they're putting the ads on, but eyes are not getting there, right? And then they get deeper into the rabbit hole. They go, I know it'll sell. And it's like, well, no one, first of all, the general market doesn't know it's for sale.
Sure.
Right? And so.
That's true.
And you don't know the specifics of that other property. And I think that's where the advantage of having someone on the inside, a real estate professional, to help them work through those things out. But, it's realtors, they don't have an easy job. But
True.
I think their first job is also to educate as well.
Yeah.
I think that'll help all of us because they're the first kind of contact to this whole transaction that both you and I are a part of, right? So, yeah.
One guy was telling us at the mastermind I'm in, he was talking to the lenders, and he's like, yeah, when you're building these relationships with these realtors, you have to understand when they send a customer to you, your commission is in their hands. Mm-hmm. So now they've done something to cultivate this relationship. They finally got this person to trust them, give them that business. Now they hand it to you. Don't mess it up.
That's a good way of thinking about it.
So then I thought about it. I was like, yeah. So sometimes the relationship with the lender and the realtor isn't always so great at times, especially if they're not friends already. You got to build that trust and then close the deal. Obviously, the appraisal comes back not below value.
You know, a buddy of mine, my buddy Oscar, told me, he goes, I always tell my realtors, because he's a lender as well, he goes, the appraisal always comes in value. It may not be at contract price, but it's always at value. You know, and it's so interesting. Talking about mentors, I have another one, Rod Heffington, really good guy, but he's an appraiser as well. And he used to tell me, like, think about every file that you deal with. That is hundreds, multi-hundreds to millions of dollars in your hand.
That's true. So
if you treat it with that kind of value and respect, then you always know, like, how to represent. I'm a professional, so I'm always going to give you the best, because I know this is worth millions of dollars. Right. It could be someone's first home or their 10th home. Doesn't matter. Right. Treat it all the same. And I think that goes back to, professionalism. Like when the realtor passes you over that client, like, hey man, don't mess this up for me.
I've had that happen. Or the guy interviewed me. Mm-hmm. So I was working at a bank at the time. The customer came in on lunch, got him pre-approved and got everything set up. But before I let them look, I was like, I want everything to go to underwriting first and get a full commitment, because that's the same as cash.
Okay.
And he's like, no, everyone else I talked to online and stuff said I could just apply online. I was like, no. I want to get all your, income, assets, get that all approved first. Then I get a full commitment from the lender. Then I don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get fired.
Yeah. or buy a car.
And that's a whole another story. So he's like, okay, so then get the full commitment. His realtor is like hounding him for a couple of days. So I had to escalate it, get the commitment, give that over to him. Then the lender calls me. Or not, the realtor calls me, asked me how long I've been in the business, or, how did I get his information, all that. And I'm like, whoa, like, I sent the guy to you, not the opposite.
Yeah. but did you forget about that?
So the loan closed and everything, and then my manager's like, yeah, you got to keep working with that guy because you guys can work together. The guy was like, no, thanks for closing the deal, but I'll never work with your company again. And
what is it that he or she did not?
That I don't know. That I guess he was trying to talk the customer out of working with me and working with someone that he knew.
Got it.
And the customer wouldn't do it because I had everything approved. Everything was locked in. We had a good understanding, and even the customer is like, yeah, he keeps telling me to work with his local broker, and that you're not going to close on time. So then he kept putting that down in the customers.
Yeah.
But then we closed on time. So then I didn't call to say I told you so. I was like, hey, now that I know you have someone that you already work with, but just in case, just keep my information, and maybe we could do business in the future. And guys like, no, thank you.
I love that. Look, man, you know what it is? It's like, look, you're thorough, right? And a lot of people, like to just go for it and then worry about it later.
Right.
Like, oh, now I'm in escrow. Like, it's the lender. That's why it's taken to. It's like, why don't you just get and this goes back to what you said about, a FSBO, a for sale by owner, and someone hiring an appraiser prior to. I do that for realtors as well. I go, hey guys, look, if it's like a cookie cutter, like tract development, you don't need me. But if you have this custom home and you're like, I don't even know where to begin, like you may need to pair up with an appraiser that knows what they're doing and is competent in that area, because the thing is, if you know what the price is up front, then you don't have to worry about it later on.
That's true.
Now, if someone wants to pay more than what the appraisal is, typically what people were doing the last couple of years, that's fine.
Right.
And I even tell people, like, get a home inspection.
That's
because sometimes it's like, get all the problems out in front, because a lot of times in the home inspection report, you can go and fix whatever needs to be fixed within the first like week. Like, there's not a lot of things, but if once you're in escrow and that 17-day contingency period, and the home inspector is like, oh, here's the report. Now you're like, oh my gosh, we have, then that's a negotiation now that even buyers have more of, because they can go, oh, well, this is wrong, and we have 3 days left, and then now you're forced to negotiate. But if you get that ahead of time, then you get a home inspection report, there's nothing that needs to get done on that property, right? So I think it's just smart getting up in front of it, than just waiting till the ninth inning to figure anything out. Now everyone's scrambling to make the deal work, or even the lenders like, oh, let me figure out an approval. Like, it's just, who wants that stress,
Well, that's the thing that people don't realize in that transaction. You have the appraiser, you have the lender, you have two realtors, the customer, you had an underwriter,
home inspector,
closer, title and escrow.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different people. I think there was a stat I read. I got all these crazy stats. For like a big bank, 32 people have to touch the file before it closes. So when you think about that,
that's a lot of paychecks going out.
Yep, but there's all different types. If there's association, there's a group that checks that. If there's
banks don't like to get sued.
Yeah, so there's always these checks and balances. But me working in a big operation like that, I understood the system like clockwork.
Yeah.
So I already knew as soon as I take your app, I'm like, all right, Sidney, I'm going to get to work on this. I'll call you back in a couple of days.
Yeah.
And then as you give me everything up front, I already know who to send what to, and then I go down my little checklist.
Got it.
Then it's good, but not everybody. So
you go to full underwriting within that couple of days. You're like, with that 2 or 3 days, you're like, get us underwriting. What do we need to take care of?
Yep.
Like, that's smart.
Because that's the best way. My mentor taught me how to do it. He's like, if we send it to underwriter now, anything that can go wrong, we can get ahead of it before the 30 days or, some people say close in 15 days or whatever, but.
How is that possible? Is it because they're getting the appraisal back within a couple days, or everything is, like you already said earlier, you pre-approve so much in the front end that there's not a lot to do left over? Is that what happens, or how does that happen?
Depends on the company, because right now it's slow, but when the market was hot, you couldn't get an appraisal done in a couple of days. It was impossible. But that's what they advertise.
Well, nothing's impossible. Money talks.
Oh, you know what I mean. But for big companies, it's impossible.
Yeah.
You could do a rush appraisal, so they'll pay more for that. But that doesn't mean that they can get somebody out there in time. And you can ask for a request from God and say, hey, this guy, I really want to get this closed. And, one of the craziest ones I've seen is it was a high-level NFL player we did a loan for. And his
no loan, name drop. What's up?
Nah, I don't want to name drop. But they closed his loan within a week.
So it's possible.
Yeah. But I mean, his financial advisor was a part of the whole transaction. Like, hey, don't mess this up, and like all eyes are on it.
Yeah.
So for certain people, that definitely works for sure.
Yeah. It's so interesting. Like we were talking about a little bit about rates and about my business. Which, when I first got into it, 6-7% in 2002, 3, and 4 was like, that was like good.
Yeah.
People were coming off an 8% loan into a 6% or 7%. So, like, how is that affecting? It seems like there's like a mass scramble now. Like, rates, the Fed's going to raise it again. Like, how do you guys pivot in your business for these rates? Like, I know there's like, all these buy downs and 5-7-1 arms and things like that. Like, how does that?
And you're interviewing me now. But
I'm trying to figure this out.
I like this. In my opinion, if you can afford the payment, don't worry about the rate.
Yeah.
So right now, obviously in San Diego, stuff is hard to come by. You find a good property, buy the property. You can do an ARM or you could do the buy down. The buy down, how that works is you could either pay to buy the rate down temporarily, or the actual seller now will pay for your buy down.
Oh, sweet.
So then it's a temporary rate where it's down for a little bit. If you do an adjustable rate mortgage on ARM, those usually are always lower. And then they do all the way to 10 years. So you could do a 10-year ARM right now, will be lower than a fixed rate loan. It's a 30-year loan, but for the first 10 years, it's locked down at a lower rate.
Got it.
So in 10 years, I mean, we've had 3 presidents in less than 10 years, right? So who knows what's going to happen in 10 years. But chances are rates will come down because the market will change. And then at that time, you could refi. And what a tip that a lot of people could do, depending on their lender could track their customers and say, okay, I locked this person in at 7% or 6.5%. When the rates drop a full percent, they'll reach back out to you and say, hey, rates have dropped. I've done an analysis on your loan. Mm-hmm. Here's the savings I can save you. And then they get, for your loan officers, you can retain your customers and make them happy and look like the hero. So
because people get so locked in. Once it's your payments coming automatic out of your account, you're like not even thinking about it. You know?
Right.
It's just like the automatic is dangerous, man. You know.
No, I do automatic on. Only thing I want is on bills, because I had a cell phone where they sent me a bill for like $2,000 once when I was with T-Mobile. And
come on, T-Mobile's for teenagers.
Yeah, well, I was young. I was 22. Yeah,
Fair.
They sent, some dude called me, said he cloned my number, and then the next month I got a bill. I called them first and notified them, and then I got a bill for this crazy amount of money. It was either $2,000 or no, it was $6,000. Then the next month it went down to $2,000. And then finally, it kept going down, but it was never right. So I kept making payments.
Yeah.
And then finally, I just got off of them, went to AT&T, and was like, yes, forget it.
Jeez. Just selfish plug for T-Mobile or AT&T.
Yeah. So I don't do auto pay on bills anymore. Because that's not good.
That's interesting. You know about the rate thing. My wife always says, you buy the house, you date the rate.
Yeah.
You know, it's like I think I've refied, I don't know, 10 times.
Sure.
You know, because it's like, oh, the rate's great.
Yeah.
You know, pencils out, refi.
Do it again.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think I did a 5-1, so I like those things.
No, they're fantastic. They get a bad rap because of the stuff that happened before, but with all the change with the Dodd-Frank Act and stuff, they make sure that you can afford the payment.
Yeah.
They make sure that you have
stated income is coming back, guys.
Yeah, it's not, and if they do they do have DSCR loans.
Okay.
So those are for investors where they put down 20%. And then they only check their bank statements or they only check their assets. So they don't go for tax returns and stuff. But they have to put down enough money and have certain credentials to qualify.
They have to show that they're proven investors with I've seen those. And
the rates are higher on those. So, but some people say, hey, if you look at the rates how they were, it's still worth it even if the rate was at 5%, because then they can get another Airbnb or they can get another investment property under their belt and not have to validate all the different stuff. They can close in an LLC.
Yeah.
So those are very, very good programs.
So I do a lot of ADU appraisals, right?
Yeah.
So is it now across the board, like all the lenders can actually use the rental income from Airbnb if it's like 2 years or on your Schedule E and all those kind of things? Like what's that time span? Because there's interesting. There's these other platforms that people are using now. It's like corporate rents.
Yep.
And corporate rents seem to pay 3 times more.
Oh yeah.
Than if your rent is $4,000, they'll pay 12 and pay up front as well.
Yep.
Like nurses, traveling nurses.
Yep.
So what is it with the income that lenders are using these days? Because it'll form my valuation. I'm like, oh, I can use short-term rentals, or I can use, so it's really interesting.
It depends on the lender.
Okay.
So
why is it like that? I feel, aren't you guys all have the same rates? Not all the same packages? Like
no. So you think of like a big bank. Big bank decides on what their terms will be, what their credit score will be. Like they'll say, okay, we won't lend to anyone under 620. That's their rule, but that's not FHA's rule. Got it. Then you got a broker. Broker has 40 different banks that they can use. So then they say, okay, this big bank doesn't want you, but we have 3 other places that will take a lower credit score under 620. They'll take late payments. They'll take, now the rate may be different, the fees may be different, but they can get you the loan. So what some people do is they'll go to a broker first to get into the home, and then they'll go to a big bank later. Once they've made payments and established 6 payments, then they refinance to someone else.
Got it.
So there's always a program. It's just like going to the car, get a car from the dealership. If you buy a car, you should go to your credit union first, get the loan, get approved for a specific amount. then go buy the car.
Gotcha.
But most people don't do that. They go to the car, they test drive it,
get all happy.
Yeah, and then they
just pay cash for it.
If you sit down with the finance guy and he's like, "Okay, Sidney, what's an affordable payment for you?" And then he give me your credit or social security number, and then like 5 banks run your credit. And then next thing you know, you got a car, and then may not even got you the best deal. And
never the best deal. You kidding me?
Yeah, and then you think you're negotiating because you're like, oh, no, that's too high. Yeah. And they go back, run your credit with another bank, with another bank, with another bank, till you accept it. Now they've ran your credit 5 times, 5 different banks. Instead of you could have just went to, Navy Fed or credit and got the loan and then said, hey, it's like you're paying cash at that point. Okay, I want that car. What's a deal we could work out? Mm-hmm. I have cash.
Yeah. And
if you say that to them, the whole conversation is different. Even though you don't have cash, they don't know.
Yeah. How do you want to pay for this car? Cash. I'm open cash. You want your money today? Right?
Yeah, I'll call my banker and we'll wire you the funds.
Yeah, exactly. I love that aspect.
Yeah, so that's a negotiating tip for sure. If you buy a vehicle, motorcycle, boat, any of that stuff, just tell them you got the cash already, and then you can even go online and get approved. And you don't got to go through all the red tape.
I love it. Jeez.
And what's I guess for pricing for appraisals is different per property, single family versus multifamily versus I guess mansion.
Yeah, so, because we offer so many different products, we pre-list, I would say we typically start around $350, but you're right. It could be a 900 square foot condo, or we recently have done like a 17,000 square foot house, right? The scope of work is different. So it's all about like, what's the purpose of the appraisal? One, like why are we coming out here? And then within that, then it's once we figure out that, then it's getting the information on the property. Is it remodeled, not remodeled? Are you proposing to do some sort of construction, add an ADU, add square footage, whatever it is, a lot split, like an SB9 sort of a deal. So, once we figure all that, then it's pricing. We figure out the pricing. So it could be from $350 to $3,500. It just really depends. And then the thing about what I like about multifamily on the residential side, so 2 to 4 units, duplex, triplex, quadruplex, is it's based the rent equals value. Okay. So just the other side of like single family homes, it's very subjective because what you like and I like may be different.
Sure.
So what you're willing to pay for and I'm willing to pay for are different.
Right.
But if you're investing in a property, money is money.
Right.
All right. It's only one side to that. Right. And so if this product here is renting at $5,000 a month, well, that's the valuation, $5,000. You figure out a GRM on that, and then you're like, here's the value of this asset, right? And if you want it, great. And I think that's what I love more about multifamily than single family, because it's more numbers based than it is emotional based, like a FISBO or whatever. Sure. Someone's like, I always want to live on the street, so I'm going to overpay on this product, right?
Right.
And so the big goal that we're doing this year into 2023 is I'm going commercial.
Okay.
Yeah, because San Diego landscape is changing.
Yeah.
It's going from coffee shop on the bottom, living space above, to now it's like multi-use, like a school campus, office space, commercial, and on top of that residential, because they all support each other, right? So there's some. I actually went to SDAR has commercial division, and I went to their meeting yesterday. It was at the Ventana. Talk about a car dealership that's multi-purpose. It's a car dealership up in Escondido, it's Lexus, right? Mm-hmm. And it has a restaurant called Ventana.
Okay.
Within this space, there's an art gallery, there's an event planning area.
Nice.
There's like all of these businesses inside a car dealership. So not only are they going to get you liquored up, get you a nice dinner.
Drinking and driving.
You're buying a luxury car, go get some dinner, get us some drinks, come back, we'll talk price. It's like, it's a whole experience, And I think it's really wise that they do it that way. Smart. Yeah, it's like, you come here to relax. This is an experience. You're not buying a car. Right. You're enjoying an experience with us. But I think it's very classy. But they talked about North County and all this really rad stuff that's happening in North County, like wave pool to development in San Marcos is going to be like a bigger downtown, which is going to be super awesome. And then there's like a development company that's been doing a lot in Oceanside. So taking a lot of the older car repair shops, things like that, and repurposing them into multi-use. So it's like restaurants, breweries, restaurants, and like clothing stores, things like that. So, it's just making the areas more walkable, things like that. So that's what I'm excited about, getting into that commercial side. But yeah, appraisal prices, they vary like anything else. And again, it's based on, the use, what is the purpose of the appraisal, and what are we, what is the property size, location, things like that. Obviously, waterfront is going to be more than, inland sometimes, depending what's going on, right? So,
like the Chula Vista project and all that stuff.
That's going to be amazing. So that's like a $10 billion project happening in Chula Vista to make, essentially, Chula Vista will be another Embarcadero, convention center. And right now, if you guys can get away right now, like I'm telling you, it's a beautiful place. Like the waterfront, they have nice restaurants there. It's like, it's a great way to spend a Sunday, National City's blowing up now with their project. So they just did a hard hat walkthrough in National City a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But yeah, San Diego is becoming, it's going to get more and more expensive.
What's an area that you think is a great value right now that's like turning over?
Oh gosh. I would say great value. It depends for who, right? If you're looking for investment, I would say obviously I think Imperial Beach is good. Yeah, a lot of the restaurateurs are down there. You have the military, so that's bringing in a certain value because they can go 100% financing. So there's a lot going on down there. I also feel like people are trying to get away from the downtown market, and so those first neighborhoods going in are going to be like the College area, La Mesa, Lemon Grove. Like those areas are going to start. Because there's space, and people during COVID, people just realized, I want space. I don't want to be on top of someone else, right? Okay. And of course the coast, but with, the restrictions with the the vacation rentals down on the coast, there's lawsuits already going up. I think that's going to kind of change the perspective of, I'm going to have something by the water and I can rent it Airbnb. It's going to be like a lottery system, right? So that's something to look out for. But,
people may be selling.
Yeah, I think North County looks to be, when you look at North County, like San Marcos, Vista, those areas, because a lot of space, bigger homes, those values have been blowing up, and you have a lot of like larger communities. Okay. But yeah, I think anywhere in San Diego is a good buy. Right. Again, you got to find the house. Don't worry about the rate if you can afford the payment. Yep. But yeah, I think as a whole, the county is doing very well.
I think what you're on track to is multifamily. This is my belief. I think as a young person, you should buy multifamily before you buy a single family, but we're taught the opposite. And I think that would help a lot of people make a decision that they are already in the game as an investor off the top. And then as they start to save money and they grow family and they grow out of that place, then they just buy the single family at that point in time. Yeah. I wish I would have did that.
I mean, you still have time, because and you're so right about that. You want doors. Yep. I don't even call them houses anymore. It's like, how many doors do you own? Because that's what it is. Imagine you have a duplex 2-on-1 and you have to replace the roof. You're replacing one roof on 2 units, right? Yeah. Then you're having someone else, help you pay for that mortgage, right? And mostly the big portion of that. So then you're able to save, refi out of that, buy another duplex or a quadruplex, and redo that until, like you're saying, okay, now I'm going to have my home. Right. And you go find that big thing out somewhere where, matter of fact, I think like a lot of people are doing is moving out to Alpine, things like that, because you're getting space, you're getting acreages and views, and it's quiet, and you're away from everyone, and you're 25, 30 minutes to the city.
It gets hot out there, though, for me.
That's why you have a pool, man. What do you mean it gets hot? You have AC and a pool.
It's hot in Alpine. I'm spoiled, man. San Diego.
You're a city boy now, man.
Yeah, it spoiled me. I love it out here. Do you have any announcements or anything other than going commercial that you like to say?
There's a few things in the works. So because there's been a lot of issues with the appraisals and the discrepancies in values in Black and brown communities, mostly working with like bankers and maybe starting up an AMC. Okay. So we can control things from the top down, right? That's cool. And look, the appraisers don't have to be Black or Mexican or Hispanic or anything like that. they just have to be non-prejudiced towards people of any color.
That helps.
So just do your job correctly. So I think the way we go about it is just going around the nation and, you know, meeting with appraisers, obviously gathering sample work to make sure that their work is legit, right, and then bringing them up on board. So yeah, commercial is like the big thing. AMC probably drop first quarter of next year. And then, I have a few speaking things going on this month, you know, before everyone checks out. Real estate's like December. That's all the parties are. No one wants to do anything. You know, I swear, if you could stay focused through like November to February, you're going to win big, because that's when everyone's kind of like, oh, I'll do it next year. Yeah. You know, I'll just gear up for next year. They literally check out. And then the first month, it's like, oh, yeah, I'll just get everything ready for February. I'll get going. So you have like a 3-month window where I feel like you can make a killing. You can make proper relationships, really go after the market. And, you know, now that it being a turning market, a down market, so to speak, you know, I think it's a lot of opportunity that people should not leave on the table. Honestly, this is go time.
Man, I think this episode, man, we've been dropping gems about everything. It wasn't just appraisal.
Yeah, you're right.
Well, our 30 minutes went fast, man. I could talk to you all day. I definitely enjoyed this episode. I'd like to thank you for coming on, and it's a wrap. Thanks so much for everybody that's tuning into the episode, and see you next time.